Let's bring in Glynnis Breytenbach, Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services, joining us for a discussion. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. You say in that soundbite that the DA pointed out the correct position, but we'll touch more on what the ANC had to say in a moment. But let's talk about how you pointed out this.
Good evening. Yeah. Well, at the outset, before the interviews began, it became clear that Ms. Bani was going to participate in the interviews. And from the documentation that had been supplied to all the committee members, it was very clear that she knew the first candidate, Mr. Tabile, because he was acting for her pro bono in a matter currently. And that she knew I think it was the 7th or the 8th candidate, who worked for the Public Protector and still works there, but had worked there when Ms. Bani was Public Protector, and she had been charged with misconduct. She had been found guilty, and the sanction recommended by the chairperson of that committee was a reprimand and some other sanction. Ms. Bani disregarded that recommendation and fired her summarily. Ms. Bani was then taken to the Labour Court where she lost, and the Labour Court found that she had that what she had done was an unfair labour practice. In the Section 19 committee of the impeachment committee, where Ms. Bani was impeached in Parliament, the committee found that Ms. Bani had treated the woman unfairly, and her conduct amounted to harassment. So clearly there was a glaring conflict, and it was there for everyone who had read through the papers to see.
So this glaring conflict...
Clearly there was a reasonable perception of bias, and clearly Ms. Bani could not participate in those interviews. And we waited and waited and waited for someone to raise it. It was not necessarily only the job of the DA to raise these things, but when nobody raised it, we had no choice. Before the interviews began, we then raised it.
Yeah, because the ANC, because you knew, and you say that it was clear for everyone, but the ANC is now saying that you were waiting for that opportune moment to play to the media gallery.
Oh, really? The ANC is trying everything. The ANC members on the committee are trying everything they can to shift the focus from the fact that they have the majority in the committee, that there are 6 ANC members in the committee, and not one of them sufficiently works with the papers to notice that there was a conflict, and not one of them raised the issue. So they failed to recognize the conflict, and they failed to raise it. To now say the DA raised it in order to get some sort of cheap publicity stunt is ridiculous. The interviews were arranged, they cost a lot of money. Transport was paid for all of these people to come to Cape Town. The candidates were subjected to the tension of an interview and inconvenience to the travel. Of course, we didn't wait to raise it. When it wasn't raised and it became very clear that Ms. Bani was not going to recuse herself, we then had no choice but to raise it.
You say you didn't want to be the first to raise it. Why is that?
I didn't say we didn't want to be the first to raise it. Saying it's not necessarily our job, only our job to raise it. The ANC chairs the committee, the ANC has the majority of members on the committee, and if somebody else had raised it, it would have been better than if it had come from us. As everyone is aware, Ms. Bani and both members of the committee, myself and Mr. Horn, have a history with Ms. Bani. We opposed her appointment as the Public Protector. She then sued us. So if somebody else had raised it, it would have been better, but no one did, so we raised it.
Yeah. So the report now recommends that this process starts afresh. I mean, what will that take? What will it mean? I mean, you spoke a short while ago about the costs that will come with it.
Yeah, well, the costs are now, that's that. The costs, the money has been spent. The job has not been done. The committee, quite correctly now, is recommending that the matter start afresh, and to achieve the best results, it must start before a new committee, an ad hoc committee. So an ad hoc committee must be set up to deal with these interviews, and those costs will now be doubled. and that is taxpayers' money.
What would you say about Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane having failed to declare that she knew the two candidates who were interviewed?
Well, it's unfortunate. She insists that she was going to declare that she knew them prior to their interviews. I'm not sure when precisely she planned to do that, but as they got ready to call the first candidate, it was clear, that somebody had to do something because it couldn't be allowed to continue. It's unfortunate that she didn't declare it. I think a better way of dealing with it might have been for her to approach her party, tell them that, she is the member on this committee, but she has a history with these two candidates, and it would be better if somebody else did these interviews. The EFF has other members of parliament who could quite easily have done the interviews, so it would have been better if she had absented herself from the entire process. She chose not to do that, and she insisted that she had no conflict, that there was no reasonable perception of bias, that she was entitled as an MP to proceed, and she proceeded. And she, in fact, participated in the interviews of both candidates, and in my view, in a questionable fashion.
How imperative is it to ensure that this role is indeed filled?
Well, it's a deputy public protector. It's probably the most important Chapter 9 institution. It's currently running without a deputy. The current public protector was the deputy. She's now been appointed as the public protector. And it's a big job. It requires a full complement of staff. They're already under-resourced. If there's no deputy to assist, that means the public protector has to shoulder so much more work, and it's already a lot of work. So for the office to run in an optimal fashion, there must be a deputy to shoulder some of that responsibility.
Very well. Let's perhaps leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your time, Glynnis Breytenbach, Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services, joining us for that discussion, of course, responding to some of the suggestions being made by the ANC on accusing the DA of playing to the media gallery, and, of course, speaking about the very imperative role of the Deputy Public Protector.